It was another day in the Squid Games. In red light, green light, I met Taquito and Chicken, who I quickly became friends with. Though halfway, one of Toquito's allies were injured, so he carried him along. However, in trying to save his friend, Toquito ended up injuring himself. Seeing this, I attempted to help my group out, but in the end, it was futile. In a heroic final moment, Toquito pushed towards Gi-hun but failed to reach him and died. There, Ji-hoon showed his true colors and ran like a coward, not even showing grief for Toquito's death, but I was too stricken in pain to care. At that moment, I made a vow to win for him, and he smiled as the light in his eyes slowly faded. Chicken, however, too sad to continue on, decided to die next to Toquito, and I honored her wish. Here, I met Kaneki, who, though he seemed weak at the moment, I felt had the aura of a demon. Carrying on Toquito's will, I tried saving as many people as I could, but most of them were killed. It felt like the gods were mocking me, but undeterred, I marched on. After completing the first round, it seemed like I gained a small following. Kaneki had begun his aggressive assault, and I would not stand by watching him hurt others, so I took things into my own hands and fought back for these victims, managing to get him off guard. I talked to him and managed to get through to him with words, and it held him off for a while. But deep down, I knew Kaneki was already planning his next move. After a perfect round of Dogana, I knew I would have to make strong allies for later on, so I went to the legendary LeBron for help, and he accepted. Soon after, the fight began. Fake Gojo caused chaos in the games and escaped, though one of his lackeys were still there. At first, I tried to stop him peacefully, though he kept raining violence on the innocent. So I knew there was only one option, and it pained me to do it. Even with his final insults to me, I took pity on him and gave him my condolences. Me and the gang moved on to hide and seek, where Kaneki insulted Batman, Gojo's sister. I got Seeker this time, and I wouldn't let this go easy. Unfortunately, we had to kill our boy Ghetto, and it hurt Gojo so much. To do it, Gojo ran, holding tears back. Afterwards, I drunk soda in his name and left some for him. Me and Gojo had a feast in his name, but the pressure got to Batman, and so she died as well. Me and the gang carried on without her, but so much had been lost already. So what more was left to lose? Following what Batman wanted, we forgave fake Gojo and helped him. With Glass Bridge done, we only hoped the horror would end. Sadly, Kaneki had other plans. Forced to vote blue or Gojo would die. I complied for the moment. I looked at Ji-hun for a second, and I felt betrayed, and he looked back too, almost like he said, "I'm sorry." The final games were here, and with my friend as an op working for my enemy, I was in for a living hell, one I wouldn't forget. Not in a long time. The final games had come at last. Everything had built up to this moment. Every decision, every mistake, and every loss. And no matter how much pain swelled up in me, there was no going back now. So instead, I marched forward, thinking of those I could still save. In Mingle, things got tense real quick as everyone ran for the door. Me and Gojo got in but were ambushed by Max, though fake Gojo held him off as his way of paying us back after saving him in jump rope. Though Max somehow survived the neck snap and lunged at me, even more vengeful than before, like his rage kept him alive. Mingle had ended, but seeing his chance, Max went for a final snap. I knew Kaneki set this up, but the rage in Max threw me off, and so I injured my neck and barely survived. Before we started, I gave fake Gojo a knife and we prepared for war. Tension grew at the table, and before I knew it, everything turned to chaos. Max was the first to strike, still bloodlusted from earlier, full of nothing but hate. Almost like he'd been taught nothing but to hate. Me and Gojo glanced at each other for a second, and then went our separate ways to fight our ops. As me and fake Gojo fought for honor, I suddenly thought about Gojo. Suddenly, right before my eyes, I saw Max kill him. My best friend gone. Anger filled in me, and I lost my cool. I attacked out of pure rage. Out of respect for his death, fake Gojo helped but ultimately ran. Max was winning, but then a mysterious person hit him and I escaped. I didn't know who it was, but I knew I had to keep going. Max came back but was once again attacked, and then it hit me. The entire time, it had been Kaneki stopping him from killing me. I didn't get why he did it, as I was his greatest op, and ending me there would have gotten him the win. But ops and allies alike, it looked like we all had to come together to face the tyrant to survive. Even with us three put together, he smacked us all off and tanked our attacks with brute force. Though after a long and bloody battle, Max finally fell and his rage had been put to an end. At this point, however, I began to lose sight of what was happening, and I accidentally hurt Sunggi-hun. In order to protect him, I tried finishing off fake Gojo, but it had been too late. I saw Ji-hun on the floor, dead, and my heart stopped. Though he betrayed me, I still cared for him. All of my friends were gone, just for a game. I felt my will fading, and though I pushed harder than ever to keep up, I was hit with a fatal blow. I wanted to lie there. Maybe then I could see the sun again. I began to die, but then I remembered my promise to Tokito. I got up, and putting all of my energy into it, I managed to win, and fake Gojo died. At last, it was just me and Kanai-ki. I told him it was nothing personal, but I lied. From the beginning, I had always held a grudge against him, for all that he did and all he stood for. I'm sure he felt the same, and now I understood why he let me live. It wasn't for life or for death. It was to see who was stronger. Besides, fights are best spoken with fists. Pain, sadness, helplessness, and most of all, hate. These were all the things I felt as I walked towards the arena, like entering the stage of a show that was about to enter a bloody final act. Yet, I felt different this time. Somehow, somewhere along the way, something in me changed, snapped. As I got closer to Kanai-ki, I felt my anger building up thinking of all the things he's done. Unlike any of my enemies before, I genuinely wanted to kill him, and I think he felt the same. And so, the final round began. Kanai-ki landed the first blow, though it felt like nothing in my head. Vengeful, I landed a combo on him and blitzed Kanai-ki. I tried holding back, but each hit felt personal for me and the fight quickly got out of hand. We both gave it our all, but he realized I was overpowering him and ran, trying to wear me out. But I wasn't letting him have any of it. I wanted him to feel all the pain he had caused, all the lives he took, and most of all the rage in my fists. However, I was getting sloppy from my anger, and I'd finally been worn out. I began to get dizzy, and a critical hit landed on my face after I failed to dodge it. Though finding a second wind, I pounced on him like a starving wolf chasing a dying rabbit. Kanai-ki, too, pushed past his limit and used a continental punch that had I not absorbed it, it would have destroyed all of Asia. I could tell he was willing to do anything to win, and I was holding in everything not to kill him. I tried finding some sort of humanity in him while trying to keep mine and not become a demon. Anything. Even a small bit, but I knew what had to be done. I gave him a final warning punch, hoping he'd stay down. But he got up, refusing to change his ways, so I did him in, but one thing still scares me to this day, the intent in my fists. They weren't used as a means to an end, or a way to put down a rabid dog. In that moment, I was the dog. The demon that he wanted to find in me came out, and I let him win. When I met the front man, I felt infuriated at all that happened, but I left with the money. By that point, I came to a realization of what I had let myself become, a husk of my former self burdened with guilt and plagued by shame. I was no better than him, so I let him live for that one day. However, one day I will come back for him and I'll make him remember everything. Then he will die slowly. I will take on this burden of justice even if I burn further. I decided this was my calling. All who seek injustice shall perish and face my wrath. I will keep going until no more remains. I'm looking at you, Cuff.